And so this is the scientific method that I kind of bring to it is, okay, so what is the thing that they can do that's going to further that relationship, and how can we continue to lead them down? Welcome back to another installment of the Perspective Podcast. My name is Devin, and unfortunately my co-host Mitch Harley is not here today, but hopefully me and Howard are going to do just fine in making sure that we get some really cool value for you here. So thanks for tuning in. Howard, I'm going to kick things off here with a quick little introduction to, or an introduction from you in terms of what you do, where you came from, why that's important to you, and where you're headed with things. So we'll start from the very beginning.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you came to be where you are now?
Well, my backstory is really all related with marketing. I've worked in lots of different types of areas, sports marketing with a minor league baseball team owned by a major league franchise, and different venue marketing within New York City, radio, national, and local marketing. I ran accounts for 2 different marketing advertising agencies in 2 different states in the United States. And now I work directly with small business owners. Many small business owners I speak with have a business and say that chaos, need guidance, and hate waking up in the morning. So I try to get people to imagine what it would be like to love your business again, and think about what it would be like to have someone with proven tools and techniques to help you get there, and how great it would be if you can triple your leads, double your sales, and find $100,000 or more in your business without spending an additional dollar in marketing and advertising as well. So these are the kind of conversations I have now, having worked with small businesses really throughout my entire career.
When you first started out, it sounds like you had some experience in what is now fondly called the old school traditional marketing channels, radio, television, newspapers, and all that kind of stuff. Can you share some of the insights that you picked up along the way with that? Because it's a very different space now, but some of those old school principles are still incredibly important, and I think a lot of people miss that when they try to bring their business online.
I think they're important in many different ways. I think I smile when you say newspapers, because many communities are losing their newspapers. Everything's going digitally online, and it's all about people reading content. And that's all. If you want to take it into current terms, into decades and centuries of newspapers were providing content. So in that respect, there's different areas where content is being provided in different ways that people are absorbing it. Radio and television is also absorbed in different ways as well. I was started with radio working with traffic and news report sponsorships. And the reason for that on a marketing focus is it was sticky content. Back to content again. So you're listening to your radio station, you're driving to work, and all of a sudden on the ones, here's your traffic broadcast with your favorite traffic reporter you know and love and familiar with their voice every day. And they're telling you this report brought to you by Geico, and doing their traffic report and a 10-second message from Geico about how to buy insurance. And then it goes back to the next piece of programming for the station. So it's not a commercial that people were switching back and forth to, which was very valuable add-on for companies to layer into their marketing, because if you bought TV commercials, people might fast forward them on with their remote controls and not absorb the message. They might see very quickly what the visuals are. So in the end, it all comes down to people want to be marketed the way they want to be marketed to, and it's up to companies to do their research to find out who their target audience is, to know exactly what ways, and say multiple ways, to get those messages out to them right now.
This is really cool, actually. You're touching on something. I just had a conversation with a gentleman named Martin on his podcast about the unwritten rule and how important the unwritten rule is. And that is, for example, television. If you're watching a TV show, at some point, you're going to be interrupted. You're there for the content, which is the TV show, but you're going to be interrupted for other businesses to share a message with you in hopes that they can serve you to some degree. And the unwritten rule is that those commercials still have to have some level of entertainment or some level of meaning for the person that's watching them. Otherwise, you do end up fast forwarding through it. And that whole TiVo or PVR era really changed the way that uh, businesses communicate with consumers in terms of just generating that awareness and then driving traffic to wherever the traffic goes and inevitably turning prospects into customers. Can you speak to that change in terms of how it impacted the world of marketing?
Oh, absolutely. It was a huge change. Once, let's go back 40 years or so. So you have a world with three television networks in the United States, and you'd sit there with your commercial and you want to change the channel, you get back up, you turn the dial on the TV, you sit back down. And cable came in, and at least like we were one of the first families to get HBO in the 70s. And you'd have to take your, there's a box, you had to flip a switch, and now you had HBO, but you have to flip it back if you want to go to do something else. So you were a captive audience no matter what when it came to commercials. You were getting those commercials. Now, fast forward into the 90s, 2000s, cable really is controlling how TV is being watched. Everyone has their remote control. They're sitting there on the sofa. And once you get to a commercial break, you may be switching to a couple of different TV shows back and forth. So you're skipping the commercials and getting more entertainment. You're there for the entertainment. The marketing executives have to figure out how to get their messages to you during that time. So yes, having more entertaining commercials is very important. Now, the rise of the Super Bowl and that had the viewership of the Super Bowl and those commercials, and now, okay, you need to watch the Super Bowl, but also the commercials. And okay, now those commercials then expanded to the Oscars and having commercials in that broadcast. So those were really heavily on entertainment, to the point now where you can see the commercials online before the Super Bowl because they want to get that buzz out beforehand because they work so hard on the entertainment. That goes back to the situation I was in with traffic radio sponsorship, because people are skipping through commercial blocks. If you want to watch a TV show, you have 7 shows you've taped on your DVR, and you're trying to get them over the course of a few evenings. You're going to want to fast forward those commercials. Now it's 42 minutes instead of 60 minutes to watch an hour-long broadcasted show. So you're skipping through that. Things have changed a lot more, where you now have cable companies providing TV shows and movies on demand. You have different companies like Hulu providing on demand shows with commercials in them. So now you're a captive audience again. If I'm watching a show on demand from DirecTV, which I get my TV from, I'm sitting there. In some ways, yeah, that you are frustrated because they can't fast forward, and so you have to figure out how now to entertain them when they're a little bit of a frustrated state, because their norm was to be to fast forward the commercials. In the end, it makes marketers have to work a lot smarter and more creative, and hopefully not lose too much sleep in the process trying to implement that.
Yeah, that thing that you touched on with the way that television has been delivered to us. Over the years, it used to be, okay, I remember when I got my first satellite package or my first cable package, and you read through a pamphlet and you can pick this package or this package or this package. And it was like, you get History Channel, Discovery Channel, and TLC, and that's a package you pay an extra $6 a month for. Or you want kids shows, we get Cartoon Network and Disney and what is that, Nickelodeon. So you get that package, and that's $6 a month. And before you know it, you have like 10 or 12 packages. You're spending $200 or $300 a month, and you still have that problem of being interrupted in your programming to watch these advertisements. And then YouTube changed the game. YouTube has it so that they're just like TV in that they allow content to be on that platform, and that generates attention because there's some amazing content creators out there. And then what they tried to do was implement ads, and the ads would either be bumpers at the beginning or the end. They tried doing in-stream, where it was like kind of in the middle of the show that you were watching or the little program that you were watching. And throughout all of this testing, what they realized was they were losing a lot of their viewership because they get a lot more data. It's direct, right? When you're on the platform, you're interacting with it. They get direct data with specifically how you're interacting, right down to hotspots for where your mouse is hovering. And these data analysts figured out that the commercials were killing the platform. So to preserve the platform, they implemented a subscription model themselves. And I'm a proud owner of the YouTube Premium subscription. I pay $14 a month so that I never have to watch an ad. And so here it is the business model is now shifting a little bit. And we've seen that with Netflix, where Netflix will charge you $9 a month, and it's gone up significantly since their initial offering. But you pay for that, and you get uninterrupted content on demand, and that supports their business model. It's so much so that they're able to reinvest into creating their own content, Netflix originals, which now drives more people back into the and so the business model is shifting, and that makes it even more difficult for marketers or for businesses and brands to get in front of the audience that they want to be able to serve. Now I'm getting to something here, and this is really interesting because I grew up on the internet. I watched this transformation happen. I watched the death of the music industry and a number of other insane transformations. And what I realized was there are some businesses who have been around for more than 100 years, and they have done an incredible job of doing all of that on their own. I'll use this as an example. John Deere Tractor Company, back 1895, they released their first issue of The Furrow, which was a small little magazine that spoke directly to the world of agriculture and farming. So anybody that was in that space that wanted to improve their production and their models and how they were working would read that magazine to get news, tips, highlights, important information for them to do their job better. And then every once in a while, they would throw a picture of a really nice tractor in there and just let you know, hey, by the way, we got this really nice tractor that can help you also. And so of that was born this idea of the business or the brand taking ownership of the media or becoming a media company themselves. And so there's been it's not something that most businesses or companies are comfortable with, but it's a topic that I think that needs to be explored. And I wonder if you could share a little bit of your take on how that has kind of changed the way businesses can communicate with their audience in terms of creating their own content.
Well, it's a tremendous way to do that and a very direct way to communicate with them. Just as an example, mostly smaller businesses, not larger ones, that are having their own podcast. This is direct communication. I am talking about a theme, a topic that has a lot to do with what I do and a lot to do with what I provide to people. And we're going to have a guest on as well. But the underlying theme is things I want you to hear in the process of hearing this podcast. Now, breaking back a little bit with YouTube, YouTube is in some ways a marketer's dream, because YouTube, you are seeing programming on specific themes and topics. So if someone's looking at a plumbing how-to video, a plumber trying to sell their services within the advertising can be connected with a video that someone is interested in learning about something to do with plumbing directly. So and the challenge for the marketer then is, what can you do in 5 seconds to get someone so interested in what you're doing that they're not going to click the button and skip the video. So it's a little bit different type of a challenge than it is on TV, but now you have your audience right there and you're hitting them. But going back to the content, there's so many different ways that people are utilizing content to help market their message. There's so many self-published books that are out there, because now I can teach you the 8 strategies that I use with my clients on how to triple your leads, double your sales, and find hidden revenue on a recurring basis in your business without spending additional dollar marketing and advertising. And you can download that from my website. I'll give it to you for free. It's content that people are making available for others, so that you can provide them with your insight and knowledge, be that expert they're looking for, and that makes them help move them along the way. Because the bottom line is, people have really 2 thoughts that are going on through their head when they have a need. There's a problem they have they don't want, and a result they want they don't have. And if you are the one that can answer those questions and provide more information on that what they're looking for, then they're going to be more interested in speaking with you and becoming a prospect and starting on that journey, becoming a client. So there's so many different ways to create content. There are people who are putting out really successful things on TikTok. And I laugh a little bit because TikTok, in my mind, was people imitating the same dance moves and lip syncing over and over again. And that's still on there. But it's about stories and about people speaking to an audience. And it could be my neighbor is nuts and look what they're doing to me. And here's my story in 7 different pieces. Or you can be a marketer telling your story and pushing your product in the process if you're doing it the right way. And it does take time and effort and sometimes money to do these things. But again, it goes back to your prospect wants to be marketed the way they want to be marketed to, and you have to figure out exactly what is the best way to capture their attention.
Yeah, I love that. The plumbing example is perfect.
I love plumber examples. That's my go-to.
It's such a great example of how you can reach people who have that intent already there. And you're right, you got 5 seconds to hook people, but that wasn't much different than TV commercials. That first 5 seconds, or radio commercials, that first 5 seconds. Now, when you're using this traffic and weather is brought to you by, when you're using those little bumpers too, you still got 5 seconds. You're gonna have a very clear tagline. You got to have a very clear objective of the people that you're trying to reach. And the more you do it, I call this the blanket method. And I think that the blanket method is kind of dying, and just in terms of how effective it can be. If you spread your message to as many people as possible, sure, there's going to be some people in there, but A, is that cost effective? I would argue definitely not for the small businesses. And B, when you do that, you try to serve all people, you end up serving none, because nobody can really clearly identify themselves as being the right fit for what you do. Gary Bird is another guy we had on the podcast, and he talked about when he started his journey in the world of marketing, he niched down to a very specific industry. We help dental practices double or triple their revenue in X amount of period of time. And that the very clear headline, we do this for this group of people in this amount of time without, whatever headache you perceive to be the problem. And it's really incredible how powerful that niching down can be. But it also alludes to how important telling stories is. Is that something that you find in your marketing and in your strategies? Is stories are the backbone, or is that just kind of a secondary thing for you?
Telling stories is first and foremost. Everything you're doing, you're on a journey. They're on a journey. Your prospects, and you have to have a story that connects with them and that they can appreciate. You touched on a few things. TV commercials, terrestrial radio commercials, and traffic sponsorships are very different in itself. TV commercials, someone have a captive audience. They're not going to flip the channels. They're going to go to the bathroom. They're going to be there in the background getting a sandwich or something during the commercials. With radio, it is all about that being that first commercial in slot. As commercials go on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're going to more likely switch stations within each level commercial. When the brain realizes, oh, here's commercial block, let me go listen to another one. I found it amazing when I was selling. I was the head of sales and marketing for the local sports radio station here in Jacksonville, Florida, and fighting for dollars against some of the more top 10 stations, which had a more male and female market, because the buyers said, oh, I got to be on the top 10 stations. Well, I kept telling them, why are you buying the same 2 country stations? Because all I'd be doing as a country listener is, as soon as there's a commercial on one, I'm switching to the other. I'm not listening to commercials on either one. So it's a waste of money. The traffic sponsorships, you're in sticky content and staying in content. So you're not seeing, so if your traffic is coming and here's the traffic and then the sponsorship's the end, but next is the weather, you're not switching the station to go somewhere else. You're waiting for the weather. So you're hearing that message. That was the brilliance of that type of advertising. But the whole point with stories, it's all about the story. Any video you're doing on TikTok or YouTube or having on Instagram, you're telling a story about yourself. You're putting content on your website that tells your story, that gives an example of the story of interactions with customers. And people love stories. They love them as kids. They want to be read to all the time. And given the opportunity to shut their mind down and just focus on a story, they're going to do that. That's what happens. You go for 2 hours in the movies.
So what can business owners do then to tell the right story? How do you craft a good story? How does this, is there a framework that you use, or is it just kind of a beginning, middle, and end? Is it testimonials? Like, how do you use the story framework now to tie in the message of the brands that you work with?
There are different types of stories to tell. One of the favorites really is the hero's journey. So you slash your business the hero, and you break it down into, you think about any different types of movies. My head right now is on Star Wars because I just watched the end of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and Star Wars is about, you got young Luke Skywalker, who's now he's lost his aunt and uncle, and he's being told he has to be trained and go to a new planet on this journey. And he goes off on the journey, and he meets these different people that he's involved with, and they have these battles and experiences, and now it builds up his confidence, and now he's training, and now he's in a fighter shooting the Death Star, and now he's the big hero at the end of the story. How does that play out for your business? You're a plumber apprentice, and you learned your crafts through this man who then said, you know what, you need to start your own journey and start your own business. So you did, and you had this first client, and the experience you had with this client that led you to have 5 more. And now you built 3 years later, here you're being built. And there's a connectivity between the things you've done with each of these clients to now it's 10 years later, and your story keeps building. So sometimes you can't write your own story. There's a lot of people who are very good storytellers, but terrible writers. So having someone help you write down the story to do that. If you're going to do it on video, you can't tell a huge story. I was just in a networking event, and the person says, this is my first draft of my elevator pitch. Now, anyone who understands elevator pitches, that's 30 seconds. He spoke for 2 minutes. And
Where's to trim the fat?
politely said, we need to work on that elevator speech so it's not cut down. So you need someone there are people that can help you to put these together and script things out. You can do it on video. And it's all about, everything should be in the perspective of the potential customer.
I love that you just added that in.
When I go to websites and I see, this is me, this is the great things I've done, this is why I'm so special, and yada, 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 and please click on this box and get on my mailing list. I don't know why people spend 10 seconds on that website. They should be jumping somewhere else, because it's not talking to them. It's not there's no offer. There's no, how do what I'm serving serve you? How does it address the problem you have? You don't want, or resolve they don't have. So whatever you're doing, whether it's telling stories or building a website or creating a commercial, how are you fitting into that person's mind so they're comfortable figuring out how to work best with you?
That's so powerful. There was I remember reading a case study about TikTok videos, and that first 3 to 5 second hook. And what this guy did was just kind of write down the scripts of all the videos that he recorded, and then checked the number of views or engagement levels for each of the videos. And what he found is that if you say the word "you" in the first 3 to 5 seconds, the audience retention rate increases. And I can't remember what the percentage was, but it was a very, very high number. And that, as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, that's a really incredible way to capture somebody's attention, because you end up talking specifically about them. I had the pleasure of working with Sam Cooke, founder of Sanity Desk. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was really, really big on advocating for storytelling as well. And one of the things that he taught me was storytelling is really, really important. And the hero's journey was kind of the framework that he used. And the storytelling was a vehicle to transport somebody from point A to point B. But along the journey that they were taking in that story, you were instilling in them your beliefs and values so that there was a deeper alignment with the person that you were trying to serve. And part of his whole objective in what he was teaching was, it's not about you and your journey. It's about your customer and their journey. So in reality, they're the ones that are the heroes. They're the ones that have to start in this place of uncomfortable despair, whatever it is, that really painful place. And that's where you meet people when you identify, hey, you are going through this problem. And that's what's going to capture their attention. Then if you can keep that story engaging to get them to that other side, if you do this, this, and this is the outcome. And that's all their hopes and dreams and desires are finally met because they've figured it all out. And if you can make them connect in that and see your values and beliefs as you go through that story, that's how it's going to become effortless to kind of close the deal when you do end up having that conversation. Is that something that you've noticed in, I guess, historically speaking through advertising, or is that a new phenomenon?
It's been around for a while. I think everything has had a framework. People figured out how to create different frameworks. If you ever spent a lot of time watching the series Mad Men, there was a method to the madness that they were having to create these ad campaigns that were very successful. And their concern was, we want to be as successful as we can for this client, so the next client could be even bigger. And that's really the world of those big advertising agencies. But framework has always been important. So whether it is a story or how to create a commercial, or how to build it evolves into building a website, and those stories went off in whole different tangents. We've seen the evolution and some people on the lost path of websites. It's important that you stay on those paths and keep to those script structures. And every once in a while, you have something that breaks the mold. And then once someone broke the mold with how they're doing things, people want to try to figure that out. It's a whole world of sales funnels. Someone figured something out and broke the mold and changed the way websites were being done. And then people changed the way they worded the landing pages that you were on, and that built different types of sales. Then someone figured out, okay, if I sold you A, you might buy B at the same time. And then if you bought B, you might buy C at the same time. And those different layers of sales funnels and offers. So it's a lot of people following the same scripts. And then you have those that find a new path. And as soon as they do, others start following them.
Well, and then enter the world of the separation between corporate brand and personal brand, and the arguable necessity for both. And then content creators building their own brands, and now influencer marketing becomes. I get, because I've been around this for long enough. Influencer marketing has existed, but not the way that it exists now. For example, like Nike wanted to sell more shoes, so they found the best basketball player that was available and then had him endorse the product. And that was just in TV commercials and stuff like that. But now it's more difficult for brands because they got to go to people like Mr. Beast or Dude Perfect or Peter McKinnon, who have on their own, through their own content development, have amassed incredible audiences who are both incredibly engaged and very, very hyper niche in specific of their interest. And so it's no longer that there are 20 gatekeepers between you and Michael Jordan. It's as simple as a DM on Instagram. And then you got to work out a deal. What's this worth to everybody? Have you noticed a change in the way that you do what you do in terms of, bringing in influences in your marketing, or is that just something that you've avoided altogether?
Well, I interviewed someone who brokers those deals for one of my podcasts a little while back. And it was very interesting hearing his story and how he does that. But a lot of things that sports marketing, that was really a big part of the game. And you start back with when they started advertising in the ballparks and putting ads on the outfield fence signs. You have a captive audience who's in the ballpark staring at something for 2.5, 3 hours. You then have on television. So I expanded more. And I got ads in the dugouts because they're focusing on people in the dugouts. But the players on the field, whether it's baseball or basketball or football, you see the shoes that they're wearing. And it's not just, can we get Michael and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson on TV commercials? It's everyone on the field having some sort of level of deal that they're going to wear their shoe during the games, and colleges having all of them wearing the same ones. So sports really is a very big piece for those endorsements. But yeah, social media really has taken off over the last 5-10 years, and these influencers, uh, really starting with YouTube and moving on to Instagram and then to TikTok. Those really three areas. It's very interesting to see how they play that. Some of them are very direct, and you see that they're doing a display of whatever hair cream that they use, shampoo, gel, on a regular basis, and then doing somewhat of their own commercial in whatever their post is going to be. Some of it is very subtle that they're doing. They have a talk show setting and somebody just sitting on the desk on a regular basis, or they pick up the can of soda from a certain brand and they're drinking that on a regular basis and say, "Oh, he's drinking that. I should be drinking that. I should be wearing that shirt and those shoes." And it goes on and on. So strategic marketers who, again, people want to be marketed to the way they want to be marketed to, figuring out what their audience is and what they like and where they are. If they're on YouTube watching this specific influencer, then it's in their best interest to figure out how to connect that influencer and how to get that product seen on those videos in a positive light, so that people now want to go out and purchase them.
Which is really interesting because we're kind of dancing around a variation of the water cooler effect. So this is a way an analogy that I use to kind of explain a content taking control of their own media, or sorry, a brand taking care of their own media. The idea is to become the water cooler by which everyone gathers around. And all the like-minded people that can be served by your brand are having conversations around your brand because your brand is creating the content that attracts them in. And that gives you a lot more power and leverage in terms of how you can communicate with your audiences. Apple's a really great example of this. They have a cult following, and the communities that they have and the people that interact with it, they're all around that brand. And Apple makes some really incredible content. But they also understand the principle of going to other people's water coolers. So they'll have themselves featured in other places where those conversations are happening. And I don't personally think it's an either or situation, but I'd love to get your perspective on the effect of that and what brands or businesses can do to leverage that attention.
It's funny that I see your water cooler statements, but a lot of the influencer effects are with people who they're themselves in their own room. They're watching on their phone, on their laptop, whatever it is, by themselves. So there is this one-on-one relationship they have with the person producing the content, and there's a direct influence from them, not just whoever else is talking about it. It does help. I think when you do commercials on the Super Bowl, we're going to talk about in the office the next day, and that's going to be a very important part of the whole experience for that and for the companies that are running the commercials. Again, companies need to focus on content. It's not just put up a website and move on. They have to have some more to it than just what's just generally out there for companies. My head jumps to plumbers. Like, okay, well, what can a plumber do? You can do a lot of different things. You can take pictures of the call them the good, the bad, and the ugly, and take pictures of rusted pipes and put it up on your on Instagram, or some really unfortunate toilet experiences that you're dealing with, and they go to that realm, and people are going to get intrigued by it, or create a line of videos of how to help what happens when there is a drain that's stuck, or a child has dropped something down the toilet, or you need to repipe something. Give them content that goes along that. Your personality is important too, because again, if I'm looking for a plumber, yes, there's two things. One, really, if my pipe is burst and water's flowing out, I will unfortunately take the first person who's going to say yes and come to my house, but I'm going to lead with the people who you've made an impression on, because I want to work with people that I know, like, and trust. That also goes to who am I going to ask for bids if I want to repipe my house. It's those that I really trust or someone else has worked with and they trust that's I'm going to work with. So providing value to build that trust is only beneficial to your company.
This is a perfect example. And I love, again, the plumber thing is so perfect. I stumbled upon this on TikTok, and when I found it, I was flabbergasted because there's just no way this is actually a thing. Because I love to just be creative and think outside of the box and come up with cool ideas and name a business. I can tell you a content model that's going to work for you to develop an audience and be able to sell to that audience. But this one here takes the cake. It's called Sync Reviews. If you go on TikTok and you look up at Sync Reviews, and right now they have 818,000 followers, 11 million likes. Each one of their videos has over 100,000, 50,000 views on every single one of them. And what this guy does is he'll just go anywhere where there is a sink, and he will, he's very intelligent. Like he's not spoofing or it's not satirical. It's genuine and legit. He will review the sink. And he'll say things about the practicality of it, the location of it, the nostalgic value of it, just all of these different elements of what makes a good sink a good sink. And to me, that is the silliest idea anybody could have ever possibly thought about. But let me ask you this. A, how many sinks do you think this guy has sold? And B, do you think he has a problem finding customers?
I'm looking right now, and this is outstanding.
So cool, right? I mean,
very much that you shared this with me. Because, yeah. And it's I'm trying to see information in his bio and see what he provided for information. There we go. He sends people out to a YouTube vid and then shows more information there. And I it's funny. This is a concept that I pitched to a friend of mine who's a realtor. I said, do things about mailboxes. There's all these different unique mailboxes, and that leads to the concept of what the mailbox is front of the house that you're selling. So it's always something unique and connected with that. So I love this absolutely, and now I know how I'm going to spend the next 2 hours after we're done talking.
Just going through and doing the research. It's really, really powerful, and I see this kind of thing pop up more often than not. There's other guys that do like car detailing. And so they'll just do a speed run of them detailing a car. And when you start and you see it, you're like, oh, good Lord. Like there's some horror stories out there. Short of seeing a limb under the seat, it gets pretty sketchy. Another couple of people do like carpet cleaning where they will show somebody's old rug. They roll it out and it's all covered in mud and they clean it up and it's spotless. And people have spoofed this, just like duetting it and going, why am I watching this? Like, I don't know why I'm watching it, but I'm watching it. And then to your point, top of mind, right? And that's it. And it's the story is not complicated. Beginning is, look, a dirty rug. The middle is, look, we're cleaning it. The end is, look, it's clean. Such a simple framework, but with a sink review, hey, here's the sink, and this is some information that would be helpful to you. I see guys like Peter McKinnon do stuff like product reviews, where he's got his own giant rig of things that he uses to do really smooth motion video capture. And then DJI Ronin S Plus comes out and they just ship him one. And they don't ask anything, but he does a review and he's like, well, this is what it's really good for. This is also what it's not really good for. And that honesty is really great because I'm sold. The first spare $900 I got kicking around, that's the first thing that I'm buying, just because it's going to elevate my own video production to another level. And so, if brands or companies, even small ones, could figure that out and tap into that, I can't even imagine the unlimited potential for growth and scaling up and all that other stuff. But
read things.
How do you convince them?
Concept. It's a story, and it's showing your personality. Those are three things. You come up with a concept, you tell the story, something scripted, and again, they could be the same thing. Everything. Here's a sink. I'm finding a sink. I'm telling you a story about the sink, telling you the good, bad, the ugly about the sink. And while doing that, I'm sharing my personality in the process. And hopefully, by the end, you now know me, you now like me, you now trust me, and then here comes the next step: buy something.
Yeah, intentionally leading people down a predictable path. Now, here's what's really cool about it. Because of the way that technology has changed, the way that businesses can communicate with their customers, there now is a scientific method to be able to maximize that and optimize that and automate things and really turn it into a self-sustaining system. I would point at things like, part of my job when I sit down with a client is to map out what that customer experience looks like. So right from the beginning, what's the cinnamon bun on a toothpick? What's the thing that you can give to people to show them that you are good at what you do, or you're valuable, or whatever? And so if you're a lawyer and that's offering some legal advice in a short video, or sharing somebody else's story that obviously that within limitations that you're allowed to, or whatever it is, that's your thing. But then once that's done, if you don't put some specific instructions there, that's the end of it, and that's where your path ends. And so this is the scientific method that I kind of bring to it is, okay, so what is the thing that they can do that's going to further that relationship, and how can we continue to lead them down? So after they finish watching that video, you're like, hey, if you like this and there's stuff and this is something that you're interested in, follow me for more, because I got tons more stuff that I can share with you. Okay, now your following is going up. Awesome. So now we can do two kinds of content. One is continuing to deliver the value. The other is to, let people know of some of the other products and services that you have. And there's creative ways to do that. Okay, so now we got them clicking over to the website. But is your website just a brochure, or is there a specific action that they take there? Okay, did you capture their contact? And, how do you take it from there? So how do you develop all of that in terms of, each individual business? And what's the easiest approach for somebody who knows nothing about it? What steps would they take to get into it?
Well, I try to tell people that the sales process is like you're inviting someone into your house, and you want to make sure your house is clean, your house is tidy, your house, everything's in the right place. When you do that before bringing someone into your house, same thing with your whole marketing mix. If you have multiple pieces and you're going to send them to your website needs to be ready for people to come to it, and facilitate whatever you want to do with your website, so that if you are getting people to give you their name and email address and trade for something of value to them, then you know how to collect it, capture it. It's going into a system that's now sending out a drip campaign of emails, and it's all set up for doing that. Now, you make a very interesting point that how do people do it that don't know how to do it? That's where they need to take a deep breath and say, okay, let's find the right people to help to do this, to implement these things for me, because it has to happen. It needs to get done. I need to really help with my branding and get my message out there. A lot of this starts with creating that market dominating position. Once you have that, then it gives you somewhat of the roadmap to go into different places and the structure of what you're saying on your website to get into the minds of your customers, the offerings you're making, added value you're providing that makes you stand out bigger and better than your competition, and then making sure all the pieces are connected with it. It would have been unbelievably amazing for Domino's if social media was around when they kicked off their process, when they made their market dominant position. If the pizza is going to be delivered in 30 minutes or less, or it's free, they sense that having their locations right near college campuses would make them a fortune, and they did that all over the country. And having video of the drivers as they're going to different places, and the reactions of people when they were, I guess, the excitement of the pizza, but maybe the disappointment of not getting that. Look, I got here in 30 minutes. You didn't come for free. What kind of video content would that have been on a YouTube channel and on their website for people to absorb? And what kind of mini celebrities will they make for those who purchase the pizzas, with the reactions that go viral in the process? You can't turn back time, but sometimes it's fun to think about what ifs.
Well, and that begs the question, what if they did it now? Because I don't think it's too late, right? I think the way technology is advancing, it's just changing a little bit how we interact with consuming content. But we're a bored species of people who are unfortunately driven by dopamine and serotonin. So we need this stuff. We crave it and we go out in search of it. So, it was that we would look at rocks that had drawings on them, and then those rocks turned to paper, and that paper now had writing, and well, then that writing we added cooler pictures and higher quality paper, and before you know it, well, radio was born, and now we're having conversations over the mysterious waves in the air, and then the television. Well, now we got moving picture to that audio, and then the computers came, and then the computers got smaller, and now they fit in your pocket, and now that pocket computer can fit into a little headset that you can wear, and before you know it, Elon's Neuralink thing's going to be implanted in our brains, and the whole world is going to have some level of digital interaction. And the way that the way that technology changes, I think, creates more and more opportunities. But what do you say to the people who are in the business of saying no? Like your first impression of TikTok, and I remember TikTok when it was actually called Musical.ly, and Musical.ly was designed for kids to lip sync to music. And it got in a lot of hot water over that from some of the big executives and the record labels and everything. And so they had to figure out a way to keep the platform going. So they rebranded it as TikTok, and they decided to offer more forms of video content, just like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook did. And they adapted that platform to do it. But so TikTok's here to stay. It's taking over market share at an alarming rate and scaring some of the bigger players in the game. But people are still saying no to it. So Howard, what do you have to say to the no people out there?
You have to open your eyes and take a look at so let's start with looking at yourself and your business. What kind of revenues do you want to make? So now you're assessing, you want to grow 10% every year, 15% every year, 5% every, whatever that is. Now, okay, what you need to do to get there. When assessing that, social media is going to come up in the conversation. So now you have to look broader and say, well, we did all this year, and this got us this revenue. We can do the same thing again, but do we need to do the same thing, or do we need to grow and do different things? I think that given the opportunity to put TikTok on someone's phone, I said, look, 2 weeks, go click on this every day. Give yourself 30 minutes, give yourself an hour, watch it. Let's come back and have a conversation afterwards. If we're not on the same page, let's figure out whether we have a conversation where we can. If we can't, we won't, and we'll figure that out there. Again, we may know that your client is not you won't find them on TikTok. But then at a certain point also is I'm the one that's advising you, and you're paying me to advise you. And we've assessed that your clients, your customer, your prospects on TikTok. Let's try this. Let's see what happens. Because again, with any type of advertising, you do need to do some testing. So humor me and test this a little bit, because you know what? We're talking about time, not money really at the moment. We're making videos at the office and not spending any. There's no ad spend there. Start with this. Let's see what happens. If it's not taking off, we'll move somewhere else. If it does take off, then we need to really have the next step conversation of what is the strategy.
Yeah, I love that, putting it in their hands scenario, just so that they can see, the effectiveness or the power of it. I'm a huge proponent to, if you haven't tested it and you're saying no, you're wrong. You're guessing and you're wrong.
You could be right, but you have to test it first.
Yeah.
And just because it's not your thing doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing.
Yeah. And still so many people to this day is like, oh, Facebook is this, and I hate Facebook, or I hate Instagram, or whatever. Sure, you can hate it all you want, but 2.8 billion active users do not. And trillions of dollars of ad spend is going through this company every year. And it wouldn't be going there if it wasn't at least to some degree effective. Now, the argument can be made that if you do a straight for the kill flyer style, here's my product and business, and you don't really target the right audience, and you have no idea what you're doing on the platform, sure, it's probably not going to work. But if you deploy some of the things that you've mentioned, the story, having some, utility behind it, injecting your own personality, or at least brand personality into it, there's a huge opportunity for you to reach people that you would have never otherwise reached. I know real estate agents here in my town that have a $250,000 a month ad budget, and they've spent all that money on television ads, radio ads and billboards. And I promise you, with $250,000, I could have done way more damage on the internet than those billboards will ever do. And that's just the reality of it. Some of these traditional marketing avenues, although they are still effective to some degree, are not quite as effective as the newer ways of reaching people. And the scientific approach to it, being able to test things, making a hypothesis, test it out, get results, measure that in tangible ways, and then work on, creating a sustainable return on ad spend. I think there's nothing else that beats it right now. And I don't know, Howard, what do you think about that?
Well, I can obviously see that there are people who are very structured that way, and it has to be that way, though this the traditional means. But yes, if you at the very least testing it, but really finding different paths, you're not going to grow doing the same thing over and over. Unless you're fully dominant in doing that. Like law firms here in Jacksonville, Florida, um, it's a buyer beware, and be careful jumping into the water with buying TV ads, because there's 3 dominant law firms here that just cover the airwaves, and there's too much clutter with them to really make your own message unless you have a really strong market dominant position and a message that's totally different than theirs. So you may need to really focus. Okay, I got to do something digital. But I'm a small guy with a small shingle. There's no way that TV is going to work for me. So how do I make things different and better and efficient for myself, that I'm growing revenues and getting clients that's not just word of mouth that I'm relying. So you have to figure out where your audience is and how to find them. And it's not always doing the same thing over and over again.
Well, and you risk commoditizing yourself. It becomes a race to see who's willing to spend the most to get a customer. And I don't think that's beneficial for anybody. But we saw this with Google AdWords. Now we know industry standard for Google AdWords for specific terms, because that's the maximum anybody can afford to pay for customer acquisition. And so if you end up kind of, stacking that up, and especially in a market where there are some dominant players, getting creative in the way that you reach your people becomes a necessity, or you won't survive.
Yeah, being creative, finding the right story, really hitting a mark with your prospect. And it really comes down to these 2 thoughts in their head. It's a problem they have they don't want, and a result that they want they don't have. And if you
I love that.
figure out how to speak to them and answer those 2 thoughts, questions, ideas, they're going to want to learn more. And in turn, hopefully then that starts the path on having a conversation and becoming a customer.
Yeah, that's brilliant, man. I love just how simple it is, how finite the point is. Listen, Howard, you've been incredibly generous with your time today. I really appreciate you having this conversation with me, and I'm sure the audience has gotten more than enough value out of this conversation alone. If people want to continue the conversation with you, where would they find you?
Well, you can find me on my website, starting there at profitmasterbusinesssolutions.com. And I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm always communicating on LinkedIn. So Howard Walpof, you can find me there. And my podcast, Small Business Marketing Then and Now, where I talk about the journey that small business owners have with their own individual marketing of their business.
Awesome. We should talk about the exchange of interviews for that one. We'll link to all that stuff in the show notes as well. And just in closing, we're doing this new thing on our show where we do a recommended reading suggestion. So for me, the book that I think, if anybody is kind of like transitioning into the world of the digital marketing space, who have been in the traditional stuff before, .com Secrets by Russell Brunson, and he's got a trilogy of stuff, but .com Secrets is a really great place to start. It will really, really simplify a lot of the concepts that you and I have had a conversation about today. But if you could, Howard, recommend a good book for somebody to read who really wants to kind of get into this space and start playing around, or at least just understand the concepts, so that when they do hire an agency or a consultant, they would be armed to do so, what would you recommend?
Well, my background at one point was sports marketing, and there's a book that I love, a few books, I'm going to focus on one, called Ice to the Eskimos: How to Market a Product Nobody Wants. A guy named John Spalestra, and he was a director of sales and marketing. He was actually maybe a general manager of a team at one point. And it was, how do you sell the worst NBA basketball team when your attendance has been poor and you have to change course and create revenues? And he figured out how to sell the team out every single game, just based on different strategies of connecting with people and finding the value of what they want. So it's again, how you can sell ice to an Eskimo who has ice all over the place. So I would definitely check that out.
Yeah, that's a perfect suggestion. Well, thanks for joining us on the show, Howard. We're going to close things off here. If you liked what we shared here in this conversation, or you think that it'll help somebody, definitely share it with them. Like the show, comment wherever you are if you have questions, and reach out. If there's anything we can do to support you, we will. So that's it for this episode, and we will see you in the next one.